timeanddate.com, we look up into the sky. We bring you exclusive footage from eclipses worldwide. We take our mobile observatory to where the action happens.
Hi, Stefan.
Hi, Anna. It's a real pleasure to welcome you at the Guyana Space Center, the Europe Spaceport.
We collaborate with experts and observatories across the globe to bring you the best view of celestial events. We explain how and show why it all happens while answering your questions during our live broadcast events. Find your home and even more details on our website while you wait. So join us next time on timeanddate.com.
And welcome back to a new eclipse season here at timeanddate.com. I'm Anna Buckle. I'm here with Graham Jones, and we've been looking at some beautiful images from Scripps Ranch in California, in the US. Hi, Graham.
Hey, Anna. Hey, so this is the first part of a double header, because eclipses come in seasons, and a lunar eclipse at full moon is always accompanied 2 weeks before or after by a solar eclipse at new moon. So tonight it is a full moon, it is a lunar eclipse. In 2 weeks' time at new moon we will have a solar eclipse, and we are aiming to bring you both events on timeanddate.com. So it's a double header.
Yeah, it's a bit of a bonus today. We were supposed to be, at this point, packing our bags and taking our mobile observatory to Argentina to live stream the solar eclipse from there, the total solar eclipse. But we're in the same as everybody else in the world with this pandemic going on.
Right, and that has caused quite some complications for our preparations for our live stream from tonight. We will be talking later on about some of the great work that our streaming partners have done in the midst of this pandemic, to bring these pictures that we're looking at right now.
Yeah, and there's a beautiful picture at the moment. It just looks like a fairly normal full moon, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So this eclipse, it's if you're a believer in the idea that less is more, then this is the eclipse for you, because this is a very subtle, very gentle eclipse. There's none of the drama of a total lunar eclipse or a partial lunar eclipse. It's a penumbral lunar eclipse. The moon is moving through the very, very faintest part of the Earth's shadow, and so it's a very subtle, very understated eclipse.
We're going to help you see it.
Right, we've got some ideas for helping, for helping to enhance the image and for really helping to make sense of what is going on the face of the moon tonight.
And also on our live stream page, we've been asking for questions at timeanddate.live to see if people are wondering things, trying to reach out to people to see if they're wondering things about the eclipse. And we've actually had quite a few questions, Graham. And one of the first ones was, and it feels very appropriate in 2020 with the pandemic, and we've been told to stay safe and keep a distance and wear masks. And so Sunil is wondering if we need to take any precautions for watching this lunar eclipse.
Right. Well, that's a great question. And the good news is that for a lunar eclipse, you don't need any special precautions for looking at the moon. So yeah, get outside, and if you're on the nighttime side of the Earth and the moon is in the sky, yeah, just get out there and enjoy looking at the moon. The only thing we would say is it's the end of November, so if you are in the northern hemisphere, it is pretty cold tonight. So being sensible, coat, hat, gloves, all the rest of it is a very good idea. By the way, Anna, we should also just probably point out, as we look at this moon here, the moon is kind of shimmering and darkening quite a bit as we look at it. This is just clouds moving across the moon that we're looking at here. These pictures are coming in from San Diego in Southern California, where it's been clear all week. But of course, just as things are getting started tonight, the clouds are coming in. So the difference that you're seeing and the lightening and the darkening, that is not an effect of the eclipse or the Earth's shadow. That is simply clouds moving across the moon, but giving it quite a nice, exciting feeling.
There's a little bit of drama going on there.
Right.
Yeah, and we're changing moons here to Scripps Ranch in California, and you were explaining something to me earlier about this, Graham Jones, that this image is a little bit different than the other images we have of the full moon.
Right. So right here we're looking at two images from California. These are coming, by the way, from the San Diego Astronomy Association. We've got Dave Decker, who is in La Mesa in California, and we've got Gary Hawkins in Scripps Ranch in California, and yeah, they've done a fantastic job getting these images to us this evening. Now, as we look at their two moons, I think we can see that the moons appear to be somewhat mirror images of each other. I think the kind of the easiest feature to look at on the moon is the big crater, Tycho crater. On the image that we're looking at from Scripps Ranch, it's down on the right-hand side of the moon. In the image from La Mesa, it's on the left-hand side of the moon. They are seeing the moon with the same orientation from California. It's just that when images go through telescopes and when they get flipped, they can come out the other way round. So some telescopes flip images left to right or top to bottom. So this is just a product of the telescope and software giving us a different output. The correct orientation of the moon, as it is in the sky in California, is the one from La Mesa. The one from Scripps Ranch has been flipped round as it's worked its way through the telescope and through all of the electronics and system to end up on our screen.
Yeah. And we have a second question from a user. It's from Robert, because we've been talking about this eclipse as the Beaver Moon Penumbral Eclipse, and people might wonder, what have beavers got to do with the moon and the penumbral eclipse? But all full moons have their own name, and the November full moon is commonly known as a beaver moon because it's the time of year where the beavers make their little huts and they bury and then they go into hibernation for winter. So that's a little kind of fact on top of it here that really doesn't have anything to do with the eclipse and what we're looking at the moment, but that the moon's name is the Beaver Moon. And Robert was wondering about that, so now he got the answer. But we also had a beautiful question from Luke. Luke's 12. He lives in the US, and he was wondering if we are going to do a hosted show. So here you go, Luke. We're hosting it for you. So glad to see that you get to stay up late and watch us stream this lunar eclipse. Do we want to say a bit more about our stream partners and locations today, Graham?
Yes, we should also probably point out at this stage that this penumbral eclipse started just over an hour ago. So it has been going for about an hour. The moon is moving through the Earth's penumbra. It's the very lightest, outermost part of the shadow. So there's actually really very little to see for the opening stage of this eclipse. It's just the very softest part of the Earth's shadow starting to move across the surface of the moon. We should start to see things really happening from around about this point in the eclipse. We should start to see a very slight darkening coming in from one side of the moon. And I think if we look at these images here, I think we can start to see a very slight, a very subtle darkening starting to creep in from one side of the moon here. This is what we are looking at with a penumbral eclipse. We're not looking at a big chunk being eaten out of the moon. We're just looking at a very subtle shading gradually moving its way across the moon. And I think we can start to see that happening around about this time here in this picture from California.
Which side are you looking at now, Graham?
So I'm looking down there on the left-hand side. I think we're starting to see...
It does look a little bit darker there.
Yeah, so it's starting around about this time. It never turns into a really, really obvious shadow on the moon. It's always, throughout tonight's eclipse, it's going to be a very almost imperceptible shadow. But we are, I think, possibly starting to see it creep across the face of the moon there.
And we
you
will
mentioned
be back
about
sorry.
So you mentioned about our streaming partners for tonight. We've mentioned the San Diego Astronomy Association. We should also mention the Sonora Astronomical Society. Tonight we also have John Dwyer in Green Valley, Southern Arizona, who is going to be bringing us images of the moon from Southern Arizona. So yeah, those are our two partners for tonight.
And we're going to talk a little bit more throughout the show how we can detect where the eclipse is coming from. We changed the moon here to La Mesa. We can see that it's a little bit more dark now. It's dark on the other side of that image of the moon, in a way the correct image of the moon, that's the moon that hasn't been flipped. So we're going to talk a bit more about who can see it and how we can see it later on in the show. But right now we'll take a little break. Make sure to go to timeanddate.live and you can find more about tonight in there. We've got a whole blog post going on down there with more information about the eclipse. So if you want to read and watch us, you can go in there. So we'll see you soon. Hello again. We're back. We're just at the start of this live show of a penumbral lunar eclipse. And here we are, Graham. We have to kind of warm up to our new eclipse season. And we're looking at pictures
Right,
from...
okay, and...
Yeah, we're looking at pictures from Scripps Ranch.
Yes, and I think things are starting to really get underway with this eclipse now. As we look at the moon now, and we should just say again that this is a flipped image from Scripps Ranch. It's actually a back-to-front moon after it's been through the telescope system. But if we look at the edge of the moon in the top right corner of this picture, we can see that it does look very white against the black background of space. If we look at the bottom left edge of the moon, it is looking a lot darker and dimmer against the background. This is the Earth's penumbral shadow, the outer part of the Earth's shadow starting to move across the moon. Round about now, it's covering just a bit more than half of the moon. And in the very deepest part of the shadow, down in that bottom left corner, that's the deepest part of this faint shadow, we are definitely starting to see a very subtle darkening of the moon's surface down there.
And we do have a bit of a schedule. It's a simple schedule, but it'll kind of show us the stages of this penumbral eclipse. And we're not in the middle of it, but we're kind of deep into a penumbral lunar eclipse already, aren't we, Graham?
Right. So some lunar eclipses have a total stage, and the moon turns a blood red color. Some lunar eclipses have a partial phase where it looks like the moon is being eaten away in the sky. A penumbral lunar eclipse has neither of those things. It just has this one penumbral phase where this one faint part of the Earth's shadow begins to cover the moon, reaches a maximum, and then drifts off again into space. So it started like an hour and 20 minutes ago, but penumbral eclipses are really completely impossible to observe until a little more than half of the moon is within the Earth's penumbral shadow. So it really is about this kind of time when you can start to see things happen. The maximum is coming up in just under an hour's time. And then after that, there'll be another hour or so to enjoy looking at the shadow on the moon. And then after that, for the final hour of the eclipse, again, there really will be nothing to see in terms of a visual spectacle.
But a very pretty full moon still.
It's always good to look at a full moon. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. And we've got, and for those lucky enough, we've got a little map here to show the ones that are lucky enough that can actually step out in the backyard and see us. And we were talking about, we've only got the penumbral shadow, so you can see here on this map as well. So the shadow is really faint. We've marked it faint on our map. So can you explain a little bit between what we're looking at here on the map, Graham?
Yeah, we're looking at 3 areas on the map. So right now, the moon is right overhead the North Pacific. So this eclipse is taking place for people who live around the Pacific Ocean. That is the nighttime side of the Earth at the moment. It's a full moon, so to see it, you've got to be on the nighttime side of the Earth. If you are over on the eastern side of the Pacific, in South America, then it's coming up to morning, and the moon will be setting during the course of this penumbral eclipse. If you live in Australia, or eastern parts of Asia, then it's the evening, and the moon will be rising during this eclipse. If you are in North America, if you are in Hawaii, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, you get to see the entire eclipse because the moon, it's the middle of the night, and the moon is up in the sky for the entire duration of the eclipse.
Hopefully with no clouds.
Exactly, yes.
And we also have a little what we call the Moonlight World Map, which is a map of what's happening at the moment here. And I'm going to let you explain that too, Graham.
Yeah, so this shows us where the moon is and where the sun is in relation to the Earth at the moment. So right now the sun is pretty much directly above Madagascar. And so that is the daytime side of the Earth. On this map, this is a moonlight world map. So the daytime side of the Earth that's basking in sunlight, that is actually the darker shade on this map. Over on the left-hand side, we can see that the moon is directly above the North Pacific, and the lighter area of the map, that is the nighttime side of the Earth, and that is where you can see the full moon right now. You can also see that we have shaded the moon on this map to show the extent of the shadow covering the moon. Now, of course, on this map, that's exaggerated because that looks a lot darker than what we're actually seeing in our live pictures. But as we can see, yeah, the Earth's shadow is now covering much more than half of the moon. And if we just glance across to that picture coming in from Arizona, then we can see that yeah, we are starting to see quite a strong darkening there.
And we can get that picture
So,
up and full screen again.
Yeah.
There you go. Let's have it big and have a good look at the moon here from Arizona. And here, we were looking from Scripps Valley, and it was flipped. So the lighter side was up towards the right, and here you can see that the darker side is down in the right-hand bottom corner of the
That's
image.
correct. Yes. So yes, that is the Earth's shadow is coming in from that bottom left part of the moon, and yeah, covering about 3/4 of the moon's surface at the moment.
And when we come back, get you a little bit more how to use our website to find out where you can see the penumbral shadow moving in from where you are, and to find your location and look at if you can see eclipses from your location. So check us out on timeanddate.live, and we'll see you soon. Welcome back to timeanddate.com. We're looking at a beautiful image here of the full moon from La Mesa, California, with the penumbral shadow slowly making its way across the moon. But in the break, Graham, you explained to me something about these three different images that we have of the moon.
Right, so we've got three, in the break, we were looking at three fantastic images of the full moon, and the penumbral shadow is starting to become very noticeable now. When we have the three images together, we could see that, in fact, we have slightly different orientations on all of our feeds tonight. Once again, the moon looks the same in the sky from these similar locations. So Southern California, Southern Arizona, these locations are close together. And this image that we're looking at from La Mesa, this is how the moon is looking in the sky from that part of North America at the moment. The feeds that we are getting from Scripps Ranch in California, that is flipping the moon's image. It's the there we go there. It's the as the image comes out of the telescope, it has been completely flipped round from left to right, top to bottom. So you can see that the darkening of the shadow is on the other side of the moon. You can also see how that big crater on the brighter side of the moon, Tycho crater, you can see how that flips position as well. And in our other feed, coming from Green Valley in southern Arizona, that image has also been flipped. That one has just been flipped from top to bottom. So when we have all three images together on the screen, as we did in the break, you can see that the shadow is looks like it's coming in from three different directions. That's all because the telescopes and the setups are giving us just a different orientation of the moon as the images come out.
And is that the Tycho crater? Oh, we just changed the image, but we did have the image from Green Valley, and I think I saw the Tycho crater there. There it's back. Thank you. I saw the Tycho crater right up at the top there, right?
Right. So here it's right up there at the top. It's one of the most obvious features on the moon's surface. That big crater. There are those ray systems, those straight lines that we can see coming out of it. They were all formed when the crater was formed. What was it? I think it's about 100 million years old or so, that crater.
And so we're noticing, especially on this image from Scripps Ranch, we can really see that it's really dark on one side of the moon. But we do have something that's really helpful when we are looking at penumbral eclipses, and we have something we call our eclipse animation, where it gives us a little bit more detail about how the shadow will move across the moon. And here we have it. This is from our website. This is an animation of, and it's live right now, how the shadow is moving in onto the moon. And Graham, you can explain a little bit more about these different labelings that we're looking at.
Right, so we've been talking about the Earth's penumbra. This is the outer part of the shadow. As we can see, it is covering, over 3/4 of the moon's surface now. The dark part of the Earth's shadow, that's called the umbra. That's the part of the shadow that is involved in partial lunar eclipses and total lunar eclipses. And tonight, as we can see, the moon is getting close to that dark inner shadow, but it's not quite going to reach it tonight. So all we're looking at is this faint shadow on the moon. The reason why it's tricky to spot, I mean, on this animation here, it looks much more obvious. The reason it's so difficult to spot is that the Earth's penumbra is a gradation. It starts from the outer edge at 0%. It is just the very faintest shadow. And it gradually gets darker and darker as you move towards the Earth's umbra, and eventually gets to 100% shadow when you reach the Earth's umbra. So we're actually looking here at a gradation of shadow from a very, very light shadow on the left side, becoming darker and darker as you move towards the right, towards the Earth's umbra. So that's why it's so difficult to see the penumbral shadow on the moon, because most of the shadow is imperceptible, because it's a gradation that is starting from 0%. It's only when that deepest part of the shadow starts to cover the moon that you can start to see the darkening on the moon's surface.
But you told me something cool earlier. If we were standing on the moon, what would it look like? What would the...
Right. So if you were on the moon now, and if you were within the Earth's penumbral shadow, what would be happening there? Well, if you looked up at the sky, you would see the sun being partially eclipsed by the Earth. You would be looking at a partial solar eclipse. Now, if you were on the bottom left part of the moon, as we look at it, in other words, if you're outside the Earth's penumbra, then you would see the entire sun, no eclipse happening. If you're just inside the Earth's penumbra, you would see a very small partial solar eclipse. The Earth would take just a little bite out of the sun, and things would just get fractionally darker, but not much. If you were over on the, as we look at it, the top right side of the moon, then you would be looking at a fairly deep solar eclipse. The Earth would be blocking well over half of the sun. Things would start to be getting darker, and you would be seeing a very nice partial solar eclipse on the surface of the moon. Nobody on the moon tonight would
Unfortunate.
And nobody on the moon tonight would see a total solar eclipse, because to see a total solar eclipse, you need to be in the Earth's umbra. That's where the Earth is completely blocking all of the sun's light. It's a completely dark shadow. The moon gets close to the Earth's umbra, but doesn't quite reach it in this eclipse.
But this is a fairly deep penumbral eclipse, though. Like it's 82% at maximum, right?
That's right. At maximum eclipse, and the maximum eclipse is at 9:42 UTC. So in around about 25 minutes or so. Yes, the penumbral magnitude is 0.83, which means that 0.83 of the moon's diameter is covered by the Earth's penumbra. The maximum is not so different to what we're looking at now. Lunar eclipses, everything happens very slowly. Everything goes in slow time. So over the next 25 minutes, the Earth's penumbra will edge just a little bit further across the moon, but it won't get much further. This is more or less the kind of situation we'll be looking at eclipse maximum in 20 minutes or so.
But it won't go red, right?
It won't go red. For the moon to go red, you need the entire moon to be within the Earth's umbra, and we're nowhere close to that tonight. So the moon won't go red. This subtle darkening is the best we're getting tonight in this eclipse.
The less is more eclipse, as you named it earlier.
Exactly.
Right. You know what? We'll be back. We're going to, I'm going to bring out my other computer and we're going to try and show you how you can go to your location and figure out where the shadow is moving in from your location. So check us out on timeanddate.live. There's more information there. There's more blogs, blog points there that can explain a bit more, links to interesting stuff on our website. So check us out there while we have our break, and we'll be back again. Hey, and we're back. I've switched computers around. I'm going to try to demonstrate a little bit how we can see, find the animation for this lunar eclipse on timeanddate.com. So Graham's going to guide me a bit because I'm kind of working a bit blindly, but let's see how we go. So
Okay.
We've got here you go. Here's timeanddate.com page. We've got our lunar eclipse happening on the top of the screen here, and we choose in the menu sun and moon. That's where all our astronomy content is, and we scroll down and let's take a look at eclipses. Now, because I'm in Stavanger, it automatically means Stavanger, so I'm going to choose New York here for our practice session. Choose New York in the menu here, and here we have it. This is what we call our eclipse page for New York, and so there's quite a lot of information here. We've got there's a penumbral lunar eclipse, and it's happening in New York. It says what time it starts, when the max is, when it ends, and how long it lasts. And also it has this map that we were looking at earlier. And if we scroll carefully down here, this is where we can see what we call the eclipse animation that we showed earlier, Graham.
And that's what we looked at earlier.
Mm.
Yeah, and then we can see exactly how far into the Earth's shadow the moon is. We can also see that it is 4:30 in the morning there in New York. Also on this page, we do have we've got some weather information there as well on the right. So overcast, 10 degrees centigrade at the moment in New York. And just to mention one or two other features, if you scroll down a little bit more there, Anna, yes, we have timing for this eclipse in New York. And we've got the start of the penumbral, the maximum eclipse, and the end of the penumbral phase. The maximum eclipse, by the way, coming up in about 10 minutes. So we are round about maximum. Two columns on the right side there, we've got direction and altitude. The direction is telling you whether to look north, south, east, or west. So happening looking west from New York. The altitude is telling you how high to look up in the sky. So this eclipse is finishing, well, it's 6:53 it finishes in New York. So that is about the time that the sun is coming up. So the moon is almost setting. So the moon's altitude for that final row on the table, just 1.8 degrees, because the moon is just about to set in New York as this eclipse comes to an end. So yeah, those are just some of the
key highlights. It's a really fun page to play around with. And if you have clear skies, it didn't look like there were clear skies in New York, make sure to go out and see if you can see the moon. You've got some helpful hints here on our page, so that you've got all the chance to see it. You can also see where the shadow is coming in and see the direction. So try it out. We're gonna have a bit of a break, let you guys go and look out the window.
Anna, just one thing.
Yes.
So just one thing. And speaking of clear skies, we should say that in Southern California, so far we have been really lucky with the skies to get these images. We are noticing this kind of gorgeous sort of shimmering movement going across the moon. We should just say again that those are just the clouds in Southern California that are going across the face of the moon. That is nothing to do with the eclipse. The eclipse is the big darkening that we can see on the left-hand side of the moon as we look at it here. And that very nice shimmering is clouds moving across the moon in Southern California.
making the moons look very dramatic indeed, and
Absolutely.
interesting to look at. And when we come back, we're going to try to digitally enhance the images a bit, so to kind of make it even more clear where that shadow is moving across the moon there. Emphasis on try, because we're going to try to up the contrast a bit and see if we can manage to make it a little bit more visible for you viewers. But in the meantime, timeanddate.live, go in, share your questions, share your images, and we'll be back soon. Yes. Welcome back. We're here again at time.com, and we're looking at Penumbral Lunar Eclipse. We're in the middle of our show, and we're also in the middle of a Penumbral Eclipse, aren't we, Graham?
Yes. So just to recap the story so far, a penumbral lunar eclipse. The moon is moving through the light outer part of the Earth's shadow. And it means that when we look at one side of the moon, in this case it's the top left side of the moon, it looks a lot darker than the other side of the moon, the side on the bottom right. The entire eclipse lasts 4 hours 20 minutes, but you can only really notice things happening around about the eclipse maximum, when the moon is at the deepest point into the Earth's faint shadow. That is around about this time. The maximum was at 9:42 UTC, but for a lunar eclipse, you don't need precise to the minute timing. The maximum is around about now. Over the next hour, the moon will be moving out of the Earth's shadow. In about an hour, any effect on the moon's surface will start to become really completely unnoticeable. The eclipse will still have a bit further to run after that, but the final stage of the eclipse, there's really nothing to see, because it is just the very faintest outermost part of the Earth's shadow, and there's really nothing noticeable looking up from the Earth.
Speaking of noticeable, we're going to try to enhance our image a bit. We've already are these images, they're a bit tweaked. They've got a little bit of adjusted brightness, adjusted contrast, but we're going to give it a go in our studio and make it even more. Let's just have a look and see what happens there. Oh, there you go. That looks quite dramatic.
Yeah. So these images have come through telescopes and software and broadcasting software. So there has been a bit of filtering and processing of the image before it reaches our screens. What we're trying to do here is actually to exaggerate that filtering and that processing, to try to highlight even more the shadow. There we can see now in this very artificially enhanced view, we can see there that definitely one half of the moon is brighter than the other half. If you're looking up into the sky right now, you won't see anything this clear. You won't see anything this obvious. It is a very gentle, subtle shadow. But as we play with the contrast and the balance, we can definitely see that there are two halves to the moon. We should also mention again about the shimmering. There are clouds in Southern California where these images are coming from. So that very nice shimmery effect we're seeing is the result of light clouds passing across the face of the moon.
But you can really tell. There you can really tell that the shadow is darkening the side of the moon when we enhance the images a bit.
There is definitely there are definitely two halves to the moon that we can see in this image. The image did just flip here as we flipped locations in California. Telescopes sometimes flip images from top to bottom or from left to right. So we are seeing slightly different orientations of the moon from different equipment setups. This view from La Mesa in California, this is the actual view in the sky that people can see from that part of North America at the moment. And of course, just to also recap, if you are anywhere on the night side of the Earth, which is pretty much anywhere around the Pacific Ocean at the moment, on the nighttime side of the Earth, if you have clear weather, you can get out and have a look at the full moon and see if you can spot this subtle shading on the moon's surface for yourself.
And we'll be back. We've got people streaming for us from La Mesa, California, and also from Arizona, streaming images to us. So, and we're going to tell you a little bit about who they are and how the journey was to get to this point where we can actually see the moon on our screen. So check out timeanddate.live and share your images, ask us questions, and we'll see you soon. again, we're in the middle of a penumbral lunar eclipse, so rather kind of moving towards the where are we in the eclipse, Graham? We're past maximum, but we're still kind of at the maximum phase in a way. It's slow moving, this eclipse.
Right. That's right. Lunar eclipses, they progress very smoothly, very steadily. So we are about half an hour past eclipse maximum, but we should still be able to see this effect, this darkening of one side of the moon, for another 45 minutes or so yet. After that, the Earth's shadow will simply start to get too faint to become noticeable on the surface of the moon. So the eclipse officially ends at 11:53 UTC. So technically speaking, there is still a long way to go in this eclipse. But as far as anything noticeable is concerned, you would need to get outside within the next half an hour, 45 minutes, if you want to have a go at spotting this slight darkening of one side of the moon for yourself in the sky.
And we're looking at images here from La Mesa in California, and this image we've passed through some filters at our studio to kind of enhance it, to make it even clearer that one side of the moon is bright and the other side is dark. We're in the depth of this penumbral lunar eclipse. It doesn't really get any better than this. Is actually kind of going back again. And we have had some beautiful images of the moon from our streaming partners in this live show, and it's been quite a journey to get these images up on the screen. Graham, you've been messaging back and forth with Dave and Gary and John, some that are helping us out in California and in Arizona. So let it rip. Tell us the story, Graham.
Yeah, well, we've got to say that we are fabulously grateful to our wonderful streaming partners for this event. They are bringing us beautiful pictures tonight. But as you say, it has been a bit of a story. So in California, we have the San Diego Astronomy Association. So this is an educational non-profit organization, actually founded way back in 1963. We've been working with Dave Decker, who is the outreach coordinator, and Gary Hawkins, who does who's the outreach special interest group person. Now they do amazing outreach work in the San Diego area. They've done some fantastic projects until, of course, March this year, when with the pandemic, everything suddenly came to a grinding halt earlier this year. Of course, they can't wait to get back out again and start sharing the wonders of astronomy with people in the San Diego community. Their plan for tonight was originally, they were planning to stream from the Oak Oasis County Park in Southern California. This is a place where they often organize star parties. And things were set fair until last week, the state of California imposed a nighttime curfew, which obviously put traveling at night to the county park to do this streaming, it totally destroyed that plan. So in the space of about a week, Dave and Gary have had to hastily reorganize things. They've had to get set up in their homes. So Dave is there in La Mesa, San Diego. Gary at Scripps Ranch in San Diego. They've had to get everything set up. They've been having to check the sight lines because over the course of a few hours, the moon does move a considerable distance in the sky. They have had a hectic time over the past few days getting these streams
They made
ready.
it.
And wow, they have absolutely made it. They've completely, they turned their entire plan around, and they are bringing us, gorgeous images of the moon tonight. So yeah, it's been an exciting few days there.
And then we've got John, who's in Green Valley, Arizona, and his plan was originally always to stream from his backyard, right?
That's right. So John Dwyer, he is the president of the Sonora Astronomical Society, Green Valley, Arizona. This is an area of southern Arizona with beautiful dark skies, relatively few clouds. They call it an astronomer's paradise, and there are many big observatories are located in that part of the world. Having said it's an astronomer's paradise, there has been some excitement over the past couple of days with the weather forecast. The clouds were not looking great. Then yesterday the forecast was for very high winds around this time in Green Valley, and for astronomy, high winds can be as much of a problem as cloud cover. But the clouds have remained away. The wind has remained very low, and John has been getting us likewise these beautiful images from Arizona. So we've been extremely fortunate with our streaming partners. They've done fabulous work getting ready for this, and I'm loving these pictures that we're looking at right now, Anna.
And we can read more about our streaming partners and find links to them on our live page, timeanddate.live. We actually explain about them there, and we'll get back to you with. We're planning to answer some of your questions next, so hopefully yours will be answered. So see you soon. Hi again, Graham. We're back. We're far into our show now for this Penumbral Lunar Eclipse. And we've been getting quite a few questions. And one of the questions we're getting on the stream quite a bit now, because people are expecting this to be a total lunar eclipse, is that they can't see the shadow. Is this fake? And when is the moon actually going to turn red? And you mentioned earlier, this is what we call less is more eclipse. So I'll leave it to you to explain why we're looking at pretty much just a full moon.
Right. So the Earth has two shadows. It has a dark inner shadow where the Earth is completely blocking the sun's light. That is called the umbra. There is also a fainter outer part of the shadow. This is where the Earth is just blocking some of the sun's light. This is called a penumbra. Now, tonight's eclipse, the moon is only moving through that outer part of the Earth's shadow, the penumbra. It's because at this full moon, we have the sun, the Earth, and the moon, but the alignment between the three bodies is not quite perfect. So the moon is not passing through the really dark central part of the Earth's shadow. It's just passing briefly through the outside faint part of the Earth's shadow. Now we should say, in 2 weeks' time, there is a new moon, and in 2 weeks' time, the alignment of the sun, the moon, and the Earth will be perfect. And in 2 weeks, that will give us a total solar eclipse where the three bodies line up perfectly. But we're still 2 weeks away from that perfect alignment. So tonight, it is a penumbral eclipse. There is no total eclipse where the moon goes completely into the Earth's umbra and turns that famous blood red color. There's not even a partial eclipse where the Earth's dark shadow starts to kind of eat into the moon's disk. All we get is a very subtle, almost imperceptible, slight shading on the moon's surface. And at no stage does the moon get eaten away. At no stage does it turn red. It is a very subtle, a very understated kind of eclipse.
And we're going to explain, hopefully a little bit later on in the show, how we've got some diagrams and illustrations where we can explain what the shadow looks like and how it looks based. We talk with some other questions. We've got a lot of people ask about the orientation of the shadow. Now we've talked about the telescope and how we can see it be the shadow coming in from different sides of the moon, but that's just got to do with the telescope flipping and turning the image. But on the moon is also different around the world. Could you explain that, Graham?
Right. So anyone on the nighttime side of the Earth can see this eclipse. You can go out and look at the full moon. But depending on where you are in the world, you will see a different orientation of the moon. So we're all looking at the same side of the moon. We're all looking at the same part of the Earth's shadow, covering the same part of the moon. But the way we look at the moon, the orientation of the moon in our sky, that depends on where we're looking and also when we're looking. There's really two things that make a difference. Firstly, there is the northern hemisphere versus the southern hemisphere. If you imagine two people, one standing in the northern hemisphere, one standing in the southern hemisphere, compared to each other, those people are upside down. So when they look at the moon, they are looking at the moon opposite ways up, so the moon looks upside down. Another effect is that things rotate as they move across the sky. If you imagine looking at the moon as it rises, so you look at it rise in the east, it's going to set behind you in the west. If you keep your eyes fixed on the moon as it rises up and it gets higher in the sky and it passes overhead and then it starts to set behind you, if you keep your eyes completely fixed on it, you end up like a gymnast, sort of bent over backwards. For you, the moon hasn't changed orientation, but the rest of the world has, as you turn yourself upside down. Now, of course, nobody looks at the moon like that. We look at the moon rise in the east, and then we turn round and look at it setting in the west. But that turning around, although we don't really feel it, that's actually turning the moon upside down. So as the moon moves across our sky, it's actually rotating and turning itself upside down. And this is not just the moon, but constellations do the same thing. They appear to rotate as they move across the sky. We have an interesting comparison here. In the top right corner of the screen, we have our animation of how the Earth's shadow looks in Wellington, New Zealand. And we can compare this to our image on the left from Green Valley in Arizona. So the first thing is Arizona, Northern Hemisphere, and Wellington in the Southern Hemisphere. Of course, with our Green Valley picture, of course, that is actually a flipped image with the telescope. We might want to get up our image from La Mesa, which
We're hoping that there are not that many clouds there.
Or it could maybe it could be that they're clouded out, which is why we're okay. That will be why we're looking at Green Valley, Arizona, right?
Here it is. Oh, this is Scripps.
Okay, well, that's Scripps. That one is also slightly flipped. Well, it is flipped as well. So yes, it must be clouds there in La Mesa. Oh no, here we go then. Here we go. Here is La Mesa, and right, it is looking a bit murky and a bit cloudy there, that was why we were looking at the images from Arizona instead. But here we can see that in La Mesa, the bright part of the moon is down in the bottom left. In Wellington, New Zealand, the bright part of the moon, which isn't covered by any part of the Earth's shadow, is in the top right corner. That's because Wellington, Southern Hemisphere, La Mesa, Northern Hemisphere, plus in North America, we're heading towards dawn and the moon is on its way down and we're heading towards moonset. In New Zealand, we're still in the earlier part of the evening and the moon is still rising. So those two factors combine to switch the orientation of the moon in the sky. But once again, everybody in the world is looking at the same face of the moon, looking at the same shadow covering the same part of the moon. It's just simply the moon itself is twisting and rotating in the sky.
We've had a question about this twisting and rotating. I think you're the expert on this, but Brian was asking, why does the moon move each month from low in the south to high in the north again?
Right. So the Earth is tilted, and this is what gives us seasons. With the sun high in the sky in the summer and the sun low in the sky in the winter. Now, a full moon is opposite the sun. It's on the other side of the Earth to the sun. So a full moon does the opposite thing to what the sun does. So in the northern hemisphere right now, it's winter, and the northern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun. So at midday, the sun appears low in the sky, close to the horizon. But on the other side of the globe, the northern hemisphere is tilted towards the full moon, which means that around midnight, the full moon is high in the sky. We saw that earlier on our moonlight world map, where we saw the full moon was overhead in the northern hemisphere. Right now, it's somewhere close to Hawaii, directly overhead in the northern hemisphere. The sun right now is directly overhead the southern hemisphere. Round about now, it's somewhere around the southern Africa region. So that's the full moon. Now, of course, if we jump forward 2 weeks to the new moon, now the new moon is not opposite the sun. The new moon is very close to the sun. In fact, in 2 weeks, there is a total solar eclipse. So the new moon and the sun are in exactly the same place in the sky. So a new moon follows the sun's path across the sky. In 2 weeks' time, in the northern hemisphere, the new moon will be low in the sky at midday. In the southern hemisphere, where it's summer, the sun and the new moon will be high in the sky at midday. So in the space of 1 month, as the moon goes from full moon to new moon and back again, its path across the sky, it varies over the course of 1 month, in the same way that the sun's path across the sky varies within over 1 year. And just as the position of sunrise changes over the course of a year, the sun rises from anywhere from the southeast to the northeast direction and sets anywhere from the southwest to the northwest direction. That happens over the course of a year. The moon is doing that over the course of a month. So when we see the moon rising on different nights, it's moving a lot on the horizon, and it's got that same range of movement over the course of just a month.
Well, Ricky, she has a different question, and it's very different. She's asking about the moon. She's looking up at the moon in the sky, and it's bright, but there's also a bright ring around the moon. And what's that?
This now we did have some reports from Dave and Gary in California about this earlier. This is a 22-degree halo. This is a ring around the moon. You can also sometimes see this big ring around the sun as well. It's actually formed by ice crystals. This is clouds in the very high part of the atmosphere. These crystals of ice, they're refracting and they're reflecting the light, and it all happens at just the right angle, so you get this sort of amazing ring at an angle of 22 degrees all the way around the moon. So if you have seen that tonight, and we know that in California they had a very nice 22-degree halo earlier. That is what that is: ice crystals reflecting
high up in the sky.
The moonlight. Yeah, right.
And then we've got a question from Ralph wondering, is the object that's supposed to come by bigger or smaller than the moon, or is there no object and the Earth's shadow on the moon as the eclipse? Right.
So this is actually this is the the big difference between a lunar eclipse and a solar eclipse. For a lunar eclipse, the Earth is the body that is blocking the sunlight. And so we, standing on the Earth, we don't see anything moving across the face of the sun, because that is us. It is the Earth that is casting the shadow. So as we look towards the moon, all we see is the Earth's shadow projected onto the moon. Of course, that's very different to a solar eclipse, where it is the moon that is casting the shadow. So then on the we're standing on the Earth, we look up at the sun, and we see the moon move across the sun. Mm-hmm. Essentially, it's the same phenomena. If you were standing on the moon tonight, you would see a partial solar eclipse. You would see the Earth blocking part of the sun. It's just a very different spectacle depending on whether you're on the body that is blocking the sun, or whether you are on the other side of that body and you're seeing it blocking your view to the sun.
And we're going to explain a little bit more about this when we come back. We're going to talk a little bit about how the shadows work during a lunar eclipse. So check us out, timeanddate.live, and we'll see you soon. Welcome back. We're pretty much at the end of our show. I was promising to talk a little bit about shadows, but we won't make it tonight. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening next, because we're in the middle of an eclipse season, right, Graham? We started talking about that right at the beginning of the show. And eclipses, they don't really come alone.
There is a period of 34 days when the Earth, Moon and Sun are in good enough alignment to produce eclipses. 34 days is longer than a lunar month of 29 and a half days. And that means that we are guaranteed within each eclipse season one solar eclipse and one lunar eclipse. At least one lunar eclipse and one solar eclipse. This is our calendar of eclipses looking back over the past 4 years. And here we can see clearly the eclipse seasons where we have side by side lunar eclipses and solar eclipses. We can also see on this calendar that these eclipse seasons come slightly less than 6 months apart. In fact, every year they move forward by about 20 days. So these eclipse seasons happen each year. They happen slightly earlier in the year.
And we do have another eclipse coming up in just 2 weeks. This is the solar eclipse that we were supposed to be packing our bags to go to Argentina to see. But there are some other really cool events coming up, aren't there, Graham?
That's right. So in 2 weeks, we have the second part of our eclipse double header for this season. So 2 weeks, new moon, total solar eclipse. We are hoping to bring you live pictures from Chile and from Argentina. Next month is quite an exciting month because that is followed up a week later by something called the Great Conjunction.
What is that?
So the Great Conjunction is, a conjunction is when two astronomical objects get close together in the sky. When those two objects are the biggest planets in our solar system, that is Jupiter and Saturn, that is called a Great Conjunction. If you look in the sky, if you look just after sunset towards the west at the moment, just at twilight, you will see two bright stars in the sky, low down, close to the horizon. Those are not stars. Those are Jupiter and Saturn. At the moment, they're about 2 degrees apart, which is really close in the sky. Over the next 3 weeks, they will be getting closer and closer together until on December the 21st, just after sunset, Jupiter and Saturn will be just 0.1 degrees apart in the sky. It will be the closest great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn since the year 1623. So that is quite another exciting highlight for next month.
And then we get into a new eclipse season with both a total lunar eclipse and an annular solar eclipse, and we're hoping to bring those to you with live hosted show. And then we'll end off the year with a partial eclipse there, where hopefully we'll see a bit more than we've been seeing for this penumbral lunar eclipse today. And that's about it. The moon looks fairly normal again. Our less is more eclipse is even less now, isn't it, Graham?
Right, yeah, if we go back and look at the moon again, a lot of the moon is still covered by the Earth's penumbral shadow. About half the moon is still covered by this faint outer part of the Earth's shadow. But because it is so faint, and because it is such a soft shadow, we now really can't see any effect on the moon at all. Officially, this eclipse still has about 50 minutes to run. But as far as our visual spectacle goes, this is pretty much the end here. Anna, we want to say a huge thank you once again to our streaming partners tonight. The San Diego Astronomy Association, Dave Decker and Gary Hawkins in San Diego have given us these fabulous images. And in Arizona, the Sonora Astronomical Society, John Dwyer has been giving us fabulous images from southern Arizona. And a big thank you to our partners for these
Thank
great
you so
pictures
much.
tonight.
And we'll be back here in 2 weeks, or you'll be in Japan, I'll be in Stavanger, and hopefully we'll have some good help. We've got promising leads there to stream the total solar eclipse from Chile and Argentina in 2 weeks' time. So see you soon.
At timeanddate.com, we look up into the sky. We bring you exclusive footage from eclipses worldwide. We take our mobile observatory to where the action happens.
Hi, Stefan.
Hi, Anna. It's my real pleasure to welcome you at the Guyana Space Center, the Europe Spaceport.
We collaborate with experts and observatories across the globe to bring you the best view of celestial events. We explain how and show why it all happens while answering your questions during our live broadcast events. Find your home and even more details on our website while you wait. So join us next time on timeanddate.com.